The conference room on Nexus Prime Station hummed with the quiet buzz of different species, breathing different atmospheres. Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat perfectly still in her chair, her small frame barely filling the human-sized seat. Around the massive circular table, representatives from a dozen alien species towered over her. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as clouds of gas contained in pressure suits. Sarah kept her dark eyes focused on the holographic display floating above the table's center. It showed the disputed border zone between human colonial space and the Krillian Empire. Red markers indicated recent conflicts. There had been 3 skirmishes in the past month alone. Nothing major yet, but tensions were rising fast. The door at the far end of the room opened with a hiss. Every head turned. Sarah did not move, but her eyes shifted to track the newcomers. Commander Vexthor entered first. He was massive, even by Krillian standards, 8 feet tall, with dark green scales that looked like natural armor plating. His yellow eyes scanned the room with the confidence of a predator who had never met anything stronger than himself. Behind him, 3 more Krillian warriors filed in, each one nearly as impressive as their commander. The Krillians took their seats on the far side of the table. The chairs groaned under their weight. Vexthor's gaze swept across the human delegation. Captain Rodriguez sat at the head of the human side, his gray uniform pressed and proper. Next to him sat 2 human advisors, both military specialists. And then there was Sarah. Vexthor's eyes locked onto her. His lipless mouth curved into something that might have been a smile on a creature with different anatomy. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like rocks grinding together. The translator device on his collar rendered his words into flat, emotionless English. "The humans bring a child to discuss war," Vexthor said. Several of the other alien species shifted uncomfortably. Is this some kind of insult? Or do humans breed so quickly that they send their young to die in their place? Captain Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Commander Vexthor, I would appreciate it if you would show respect to all members of this delegation. Lieutenant Chen is a decorated officer and tactical specialist." Vexthor leaned back in his chair. The metal frame creaked. "Decorated? What decorations does humanity give? Medals for not breaking when the wind blows?" He looked at Sarah directly now. "Tell me, little human girl, have you ever even seen combat? Or do you plan strategy from safe rooms while real warriors fight?" Sarah's expression did not change. She had heard worse before. Much worse. She simply looked at Vexthor with calm, measuring eyes and said nothing. This seemed to irritate him more than any response would have. Ambassador Talara, a floating ethereal who served as the station's neutral mediator, pulsed a soft blue color that indicated concern. "Perhaps we should focus on the purpose of this meeting," she said, her voice like wind chimes. "We are here to prevent further conflict, not to create new tensions." "I agree," Captain Rodriguez said. He tapped the table and the holographic display zoomed in on a specific sector. "Our proposal is simple. We establish a joint patrol zone with both human and Krillian forces working together to—" "Work together?" Vexthor interrupted. "Why would warriors of the Krillian Empire work alongside creatures so weak they might break if we shake hands too hard?" He gestured at Sarah again. "This one looks like she weighs less than my weapon. How can we trust humans in combat when they send such delicate things to represent them?" One of the human advisors started to stand, anger flashing across his face. Sarah put a hand on his arm, gentle but firm. He sat back down. She still had not spoken a word. Captain Rodriguez took a deep breath. "Commander, I understand that our species have different physical attributes. But strength is not only measured in size or muscle mass. Perhaps a demonstration would help clear up these misconceptions." Vexthor's eyes gleamed. "A demonstration? You mean combat?" "A training exercise," Rodriguez clarified. "Your warriors against ours. Standard arena protocols. Non-lethal settings. It would give both our forces a chance to observe each other's capabilities." The Krillian commander stood up, his full height making everyone else in the room look small. "Excellent, we accept. In fact, I insist on it. The Krillian people have heard much about humanity's supposed military strength. It is time we see the truth with our own eyes." Ambassador Talara pulsed a worried orange. "Captain Rodriguez, are you certain this is wise? The arena on Nexus Prime is designed for training, yes, but injuries can still occur." "We accept the risks," Rodriguez said. He glanced at Sarah, a question in his eyes. She gave the smallest nod. "Our people are prepared." Vexthor laughed. It was a harsh barking sound. "Prepared for what?" To be broken like dry sticks? He walked around the table, moving with surprising grace for something so large. He stopped behind Sarah's chair. I have fought in 147 honor duels. I have defeated warriors from 30 different species. I have never lost. Not once. He leaned down, bringing his massive head close to Sarah's. His breath smelled like hot metal. Perhaps I will face this delicate human girl myself. It would be over so quickly that no real harm would come to her. I am not without mercy. Sarah turned her head slightly, just enough to look at him. Her voice was quiet, steady, and carried no emotion at all. If that is what you wish, Commander. Vexthor pulled back, surprised that she had finally spoken. Then he laughed again. It speaks. Tell me, little flower, have you ever even struck another living being? Yes, Sarah said simply. And did they survive the experience? Vexthor mocked. Some of them did, Sarah replied. The room fell silent. There was something in the way she said it, something in the absolute calm of her voice that made even Vexthor pause. But the moment passed quickly. He was too confident, too sure of his superiority. Tomorrow, then, Vexthor announced. We will meet in the main arena. I will personally face this human child, and we will show the entire station what Krillian strength truly means. He looked at Ambassador Talara. You will record it, yes? So that all species may see? If both parties agree, Talara said carefully. We agree, Sarah said before Captain Rodriguez could respond. Rodriguez shot her a concerned look, but she met his gaze steadily. He sighed. Very well. Tomorrow at midday station time. Standard arena rules. Hand-to-hand combat only. Vexthor's smile widened. No weapons? Even better. I would hate to damage something that belongs to the human military. Equipment is expensive, yes? He gestured to Sarah. Though I suppose humans are cheap to replace. You breed quickly like vermin. Sarah stood up. She was less than half Vexthor's height. She looked up at him, and for just a moment something flickered in her eyes, something cold and calculating. But it was gone so fast that Vexthor did not notice. Until tomorrow. Commander, she said, as the Krillians left the conference room, their heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. Captain Rodriguez turned to Sarah. Are you absolutely sure about this? Sarah began gathering her data tablets. He challenged humanity's honor, sir, and he specifically challenged me. If I refuse, every species on this station will think humans are weak. You know what Krillians are capable of, Rodriguez said quietly. Vexthor is not exaggerating about his combat record. He's dangerous. Sarah looked at her commanding officer. A small smile touched the corners of her mouth. So am I, sir. So am I. The next morning, word had spread throughout Nexus Prime. The main arena began filling with spectators hours before the scheduled match. Representatives from dozens of species came to watch. Some came to see if humans could truly fight. Others came hoping to see the arrogant Krillians finally humbled. Most came simply because they had nothing better to do, and watching a human get crushed by a Krillian warrior seemed like acceptable entertainment. Sarah stood in the human preparation room, stretching slowly. She wore a simple gray combat suit, flexible and light. Captain Rodriguez stood nearby, arms crossed, still looking worried. It's not too late to back out, he said. I could take your place. Or we could send Martinez. He's bigger, stronger. Martinez would lose in 15 seconds instead of 10, Sarah interrupted gently. Size won't help against Vexthor, sir. You know that. Then what will help? Sarah finished her stretches and stood up straight. Knowledge, preparation, and the fact that Vexthor thinks this will be easy. She headed for the door leading to the arena. That's always the advantage, sir. When your enemy underestimates you, they've already lost. The arena was circular, about 50 meters across, with a smooth gray floor designed to handle combat from any species. Around the edges, reinforced transparent barriers rose up to protect the audience. Above those barriers, hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds watched with various combinations of eyes, sensors, and other sensory organs. Sarah walked through the access tunnel and stepped onto the arena floor. The lights were bright, almost harsh. She could feel the weight of all those eyes on her. The crowd noise was strange, a mix of sounds that no single species could produce. Clicks, whistles, growls, and hums blended together into something alien and unsettling. On the opposite side of the arena, Vexthor emerged from the Krillian preparation area. He raised his arms above his head, and his warriors in the audience roared their approval. The sound was deafening. Vexthor's scales caught the light, making him look like he was covered in dark green metal. Ambassador Talara floated above the center of the arena, her ethereal form pulsing with official purple light. Her voice, amplified by the station speakers, filled the space. This is an official training exercise under Nexus Prime protocols. Hand-to-hand combat only. No weapons. No lethal force. The match ends when one participant surrenders, loses consciousness, or is unable to continue. Medical teams are standing by. She paused, looking at both fighters. Commander Vexthor of the Krillian Empire, Lieutenant Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Forces. Do you both understand and accept these terms? Accepted, Vexthor's voice boomed across the arena. Accepted, Sarah said quietly. Her voice was barely audible, but the microphones picked it up. Talara floated higher out of the combat zone. You may begin when ready. Vexthor strode toward the center of the arena. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. His massive feet thudded against the floor. When he reached the middle, he stopped and turned to face the section where most Krillians sat. My brothers and sisters, he called out in his own language, which the translator rendered for everyone else to hear. Watch as I demonstrate the superiority of Krillian warriors. This human is small, weak, and fragile. I will show her mercy. I will defeat her gently so she may live to tell others of Krillian strength. Cheers erupted from the Krillian section. Some of the other species watched silently. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. Sarah walked slowly toward the center. She did not rush. She did not show off. She simply approached with steady, measured steps. When she was about 5 meters from Vexthor, she stopped. Vexthor looked down at her. The size difference was enormous. He was nearly twice her height and probably weighed 4 times as much. Are you ready, little human girl? Yes, Sarah said. Have you chosen your ancestors' gods to pray to? Vexthor asked. Krillians always pray before battle. It honors those who came before. I do not need to pray, Sarah replied. Vexthor laughed. Such confidence. Or perhaps you humans simply have no gods worth praying to. He began to circle her slowly. I have studied human anatomy. Your bones are thin. Your muscles are weak. Your skin tears easily. Even your gravity is light. Your homeworld must be a gentle place to produce such delicate creatures. Sarah turned slowly to keep facing him, but she said nothing. I will tell you my plan, Vexthor continued. He was enjoying this, playing to the crowd. I will grab your arm. Just one arm. I will apply pressure until you surrender. It will hurt, yes, but it will not break anything. You will live. You will simply know that you cannot match Krillian power. This is a kindness. You understand? I understand what you intend to do, Sarah said. Good, are you ready? Sarah settled into a stance. Her feet were shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent. Her hands were open, relaxed at her sides. She looked calm, almost peaceful. I am ready. Vexthor stopped circling. He faced her directly. Then let us begin. Remember, this is a learning experience. There is no shame in losing to a superior warrior. He started to move forward, closing the distance. His movements were slow, deliberate. He was not rushing because he did not need to rush. In his mind, this was already over. He reached out with his right hand, fingers spread wide, aiming for Sarah's left shoulder. I will try to be gentle, little flower, he said. The crowd leaned forward. Some were recording. Others were placing last-minute bets. In the human section, Captain Rodriguez sat with his fists clenched, jaw tight. He wanted to look away but could not. Vexthor's hand was inches from Sarah's shoulder. His yellow eyes looked almost bored. This would be the fastest victory of his career. Perhaps he would even let the human buy him a drink afterward, to show there were no hard feelings. Sarah remained perfectly still, watching him. Her breathing was slow and controlled. Her eyes tracked every movement Vexthor made. She was analyzing, calculating, measuring. She had spent 6 months studying Krillian physiology. She knew their strengths. She knew their weaknesses. She knew exactly where to strike. Vexthor's fingers were about to make contact with her shoulder. Sarah moved. What happened next took 10 seconds. To most of the audience, it was a blur. To Sarah, it was a carefully choreographed sequence she had practiced thousands of times. Vexthor's hand touched her shoulder. In that instant, Sarah's entire body exploded into motion. She dropped low, her right leg sweeping out in a wide arc. The move was fast, precise, and targeted at Vexthor's forward leg. Krillians were top-heavy. Their center of gravity was high because of their massive upper bodies. Sarah had studied this. She knew that if you compromised their base, their own weight worked against them. Her leg struck Vexthor's shin with perfect timing. At the same moment, she twisted her body and drove her left palm upward into his elbow joint. Krillian joints were strong but had one critical weakness. They locked under pressure from certain angles. Vexthor's leg buckled. He was already falling forward from his own momentum. Sarah used that momentum, redirecting it rather than fighting against it. In hand-to-hand combat, the bigger opponent's strength becomes their weakness if you know how to use it. As Vexthor fell, Sarah moved with him. She kept control of his arm, twisting it at precisely the angle that Krillian physiology could not resist. Her movements were fluid, efficient. She wasted no energy. Vexthor hit the arena floor hard. The impact shook the ground. But Sarah was already moving to her next position. She had his arm locked now, hyperextended at the elbow, one hand pressed against a nerve cluster that humans had discovered in Krillian necks during their months of study. The other hand maintained pressure on the joint. Vexthor's face was pressed against the floor. His free arm flailed, trying to reach Sarah, but she was positioned where he could not grab her. His legs kicked, but Sarah's weight was distributed perfectly to pin him in place. The entire sequence, from the moment Vexthor touched her shoulder to the moment he was face down on the arena floor, had taken 10 seconds. The arena fell completely silent. Vexthor tried to move, tried to push himself up. Sarah applied more pressure to the nerve cluster. Pain shot through the Krillian commander's body. It was a pain he had never felt before. His species did not have pressure points in most places, but humans had found the few that existed. The pain was intense, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. "Surrender," Sarah said quietly, her voice calm. Vexthor's pride would not let him. He tried to twist free. Sarah shifted her weight slightly and increased the pressure on his elbow joint. Krillians were strong, but their joints had limits. Push past those limits and even the strongest warrior would break. Vexthor felt his elbow beginning to give way. The pain in his neck intensified. His vision started to blur. He could not breathe properly with his face pressed to the floor. Panic began to override pride. This was not supposed to happen. This could not happen. He was Vexthor, undefeated champion of the Krillian Empire. He did not lose to small humans. He did not lose to anyone, but he was losing. "Surrender," Sarah repeated. There was no mockery in her voice, no anger, no emotion at all. It was a simple statement of fact. Vexthor's body betrayed him. The pain was too much. The fear of permanent injury was too real. His pride shattered. "I surrender," he screamed in his own language. "Mercy! I beg mercy, stop! Please stop!" The words echoed through the arena. Every species heard them. Every recording device captured them. Sarah released him immediately. She stepped back, giving him space. Vexthor lay on the floor, gasping for air, clutching his injured arm. He was shaking. Whether from pain or shock or humiliation, it was hard to tell. Probably all three. The arena remained silent for another few seconds. Then the noise exploded. Some species cheered. Others made sounds of disbelief. The Krillian section sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. Sarah backed away further, giving them room to work. She was breathing slightly faster than normal, but otherwise appeared completely calm. There was no celebration, no show of victory. She simply stood there, waiting. Ambassador Talara floated down, her form pulsing with shocked white light. "The match is over. Lieutenant Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Forces is the victor." Captain Rodriguez was already running onto the arena floor. He reached Sarah and put a hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" "I am fine, sir," Sarah said. He looked at Vexthor, who was being helped up by the medical team. The Krillian commander could barely stand. His arm hung at an odd angle. The medical bay on Nexus Prime was designed to handle injuries from hundreds of different species. Krillian physiology was well documented, and the medical staff worked efficiently to treat Vexthor's injuries. The commander sat on a reinforced medical bed, his arm in a stabilization field that glowed soft blue. Dr. Yilmar, a four-armed Centaurian physician, examined the scans floating in the air before him. "The damage is significant but not permanent," he said in his clicking language. The translator rendered it clearly. The elbow joint was hyperextended but not torn. The nerve inflammation will heal within a few days. You were lucky, Commander. Vexthor said nothing. He stared at the wall, his yellow eyes unfocused. His warriors stood nearby, equally silent. The shame was thick in the room, almost physical. Lucky, Vexthor finally repeated, his voice hollow. I was defeated in 10 seconds by a human half my size. That is not luck. That is humiliation. Dr. Yilmar made a gesture that might have been a shrug with 4 arms. Humiliation heals faster than broken bones. You will recover, Commander. The door to the medical bay opened. Captain Rodriguez entered, followed by Sarah. The Krillian warriors immediately tensed, hands moving toward weapons that were not there. Station regulations prohibited weapons in medical areas. We came to check on the commander's condition, Rodriguez said formally. Vexthor finally looked at them, his eyes focused on Sarah. She met his gaze steadily, without pride or pity. For a long moment neither spoke. How? Vexthor finally asked. How did you defeat me so quickly? I have fought for 20 years. I have studied combat from my hatching. I have never been defeated, never. Sarah stepped forward. Rodriguez stayed near the door, letting her handle this. She pulled up a small holographic display from her wrist device. May I show you? Vexthor nodded slowly. Sarah activated the display. A 3-dimensional model of a Krillian body appeared, rotating slowly in the air. My people spent 6 months studying your species' physiology. We obtained medical data, combat footage, anatomical databases. We wanted to understand you. She pointed to the knee joint on the hologram. Krillians evolved on a low-gravity world. Your planet has about 70% of Earth's gravity. Your species developed strong upper bodies for climbing and reaching. But your lower body did not need to support as much weight. Your knee joints are strong for your world, but they have a weakness when struck from certain angles under higher gravity. Vexthor watched the display. His warriors moved closer, also watching. Sarah changed the image, highlighting the nerve cluster in the neck. This was harder to find. Krillians have fewer nerve clusters than humans. Your scales protect most of them, but there is one point here, where the scales are thinner, where the nerves are closer to the surface. Pressure applied here causes intense pain and temporary paralysis. She rotated the image to show the elbow joint. Your joints lock for stability. This is excellent for your fighting style, which relies on powerful, committed strikes. But joints that lock can also be exploited. If forced past their locking point, they become vulnerable very quickly. Vexthor stared at the display. Understanding began to dawn in his eyes, but it was mixed with something else. Something darker. You studied us. You found our weaknesses, and then you used them. Yes, Sarah said simply. This is not honorable combat, one of the Krillian warriors said. This is trickery. This is deception. Sarah turned to face the warrior. Is it dishonorable to prepare for battle? To understand your enemy? To use intelligence instead of only strength? The warrior had no answer. Sarah looked back at Vexthor.
You called me weak.
You called me delicate. You assumed that because I am small, I am not dangerous. That was your mistake, Commander. Not mine. Vexthor closed his eyes. The truth was painful, but he could not deny it. You are right. I underestimated you. I underestimated all humans. Most species do, Captain Rodriguez said, speaking for the first time since entering. They see our size, our build, our appearance. They think we are fragile. They do not understand what it means to evolve on Earth. Your planet, Vexthor said. You mentioned gravity. What else should I know about your homeworld? Sarah switched the holographic display. Now it showed Earth slowly rotating. Earth has stronger gravity than most inhabited worlds. It has extreme temperature variations. It has violent weather. It has thousands of species that evolved specifically to kill and eat other species. She zoomed in on different regions of the planet. Humans evolved not as apex predators, but as persistence hunters. We were not the strongest. We were not the fastest. We were not the most dangerous. So we learned to survive through endurance, through intelligence, through adaptation. A new image appeared showing early humans hunting. Our ancestors would chase prey for hours, sometimes days. The prey was faster, but we would not stop. We would track it, wear it down, outlast it. We learned to use tools because we could not rely on claws or fangs. We learned to work together because alone we were too weak. Vexthor watched the images, his expression changing. You are saying humans are weak? Compared to Krillians? Yes, individually we are weaker, Sarah said. But weakness forced us to be clever. It forced us to study. It forced us to find advantages wherever we could. Your strength made you confident. Our weakness made us creative. Dr. Yilmar, who had been listening quietly, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Fascinating. I have read Earth's biological databases. Your planet has a remarkably high percentage of lethal organisms. Venomous insects, predatory mammals, parasitic organisms, toxic plants. Most worlds have far fewer dangers. Exactly, Rodriguez said. Earth made us tough in ways that are not obvious. Our immune systems fight off diseases that would kill most aliens. Our pain tolerance is higher because our planet hurt us constantly. We learned to fight effectively because everything on Earth was either trying to eat us or competing with us for food. One of the Krillian warriors spoke up. But you still look weak. You still look fragile? Sarah smiled slightly. That is what we call an evolutionary advantage. When your enemies underestimate you, you have already won half the battle. Vexthor was quiet for a long time. The medical bay's machines hummed softly. Finally he spoke. I insulted you. I insulted your entire species. I called you weak, delicate, a child. I said humans breed like vermin. He paused. I was wrong. Completely wrong? Yes, you were, Sarah said. There was no anger in her voice, just a statement of fact. Among Krillians, when a warrior is defeated, they owe the victor a debt of honor, Vexthor said slowly. I am not sure how humans handle such things. Rodriguez crossed his arms. We prefer that people simply learn from their mistakes and do better in the future. That seems wise, Vexthor said, but I would still like to make amends. What I did was not just a personal insult. I represented my entire empire. I came here full of arrogance and prejudice. The entire galaxy watched me call you weak and then watched you defeat me in seconds. I have damaged relations between our peoples. Sarah considered this. Then help repair those relations. The border disputes that brought us here, they are based on the same kind of thinking that led to your defeat. The Krillian Empire assumed humans would back down because we look weak. We did not back down. The tensions grew. Now we stand at the edge of real conflict. You want me to convince my leaders to seek peace? Vexthor asked. I want you to convince them that humans are worth negotiating with as equals, Sarah said, not as inferiors to be pushed around. Vexthor nodded slowly. His arm was starting to feel better as the medical field did its work. I can do that. I will do that. After today, I think many Krillians will be eager to avoid fighting humans. That would be good, Rodriguez said. War benefits no one. Dr. Yilmar checked his displays again. Commander, you will need to rest for another few hours. The nerve damage is healing, but I want to monitor you. Your warriors may stay if you wish. Thank you, Doctor, Vexthor said. Then he looked at Sarah again. Lieutenant Chen, may I ask you something? Yes. In the arena, you could have broken my arm. You could have caused permanent damage. But you stopped as soon as I surrendered. Why, I showed you no mercy. I mocked you, insulted you. You owed me nothing. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Because the goal was not to hurt you, Commander. The goal was to make you understand. Breaking your arm would not have taught you anything except that I was cruel. Releasing you immediately taught you that humans know the difference between combat and cruelty. Vexthor nodded slowly. There is a Krillian saying. True strength is knowing when to strike, but greater strength is knowing when to stop. I always thought I understood it. Today you taught me what it really means. I am glad you learned something useful, Sarah said. As she and Rodriguez turned to leave, Vexthor called out once more. Lieutenant Chen? She stopped and looked back. If our peoples do go to war despite everything, I hope I am not foolish enough to face you again. Sarah smiled. If our peoples go to war, Commander, you will not be facing just me. You will be facing millions of humans, all of whom grew up on a death world, all of whom know how to turn weakness into strength. I promise you that is not a war anyone wants. The door closed behind them lay. News traveled fast through Nexus Prime Station. Within hours, every species with a presence there had seen the recording of the fight. Within a day, the recording had spread across multiple star systems. By the end of the week, it was being discussed in government chambers and military academies across a dozen different civilizations. The Krillian Empire was in chaos. Their greatest living warrior, a champion who had never lost, had been defeated in 10 seconds by what they had assumed was a weak species. Questions were being asked at every level of their government. If humans were this dangerous, what else had the Empire misjudged? On Nexus Prime, The diplomatic conference that had nearly collapsed was suddenly moving forward with remarkable speed. The Krillian delegates were polite now, respectful. They listened when humans spoke instead of interrupting. The border disputes were being resolved through actual negotiation rather than threats. But the real changes were happening in quieter places. Sarah sat in a small briefing room with a group of military commanders from 6 different species. Captain Rodriguez sat beside her. On the display screen, her fight with Vexathor played on a loop, paused at various moments for analysis. Commander Felsath of the Aquarian Defense Fleet, a being that looked like a cross between an octopus and a suit of armor, gestured with 3 of his tentacles. This move here, where you redirect his momentum, this requires precise timing and an understanding of leverage principles. How long did you train to perform this technique? 3 years specifically against Krillian physiology, Sarah answered. But I studied basic hand-to-hand combat for 10 years before that. A mounted warrior named Clickstar clicked his mandibles. 10 years? That seems excessive for such a small species. Surely most of that training was wasted given your physical limitations. Rodriguez spoke up. That is exactly the kind of thinking that gets species hurt when they face humans. You see physical limitations. We see problems to solve. Sarah is not special among humans. Every member of our military trains for years. Every one of them studies alien physiology. Every one of them learns to turn disadvantages into advantages. But why? Asked General Tov, a Ursinian who looked like a bear made of living stone. If you know you are weaker, why not simply build better weapons? Why invest so much in individual combat training? Sarah stood and walked to the display. She changed the image to show Earth's history. Because for most of our existence, we did not have advanced weapons. We had rocks and sticks in our own bodies. We learned to fight with what we had. It became part of our culture, our identity. Even now, with plasma weapons and starships, we still train in hand-to-hand combat. It teaches discipline, strategy, and most importantly, it teaches us that we can defeat enemies stronger than ourselves. She pulled up another image, showing human soldiers training. Every human in our military goes through 6 months of basic training. Then they specialize. If they go into special forces, like I did, they train for another 2 years. They learn to fight in any environment against any enemy. They learn medicine, engineering, tactics, survival skills. By the time they are done, they are not just soldiers. They are living weapons who can think, adapt, and overcome. Clickstar was silent for a moment. This explains much. When the border skirmishes occurred, our intelligence reported that human forces were surprisingly effective despite being outnumbered and outgunned. We assumed it was luck or better equipment. But it was training. Training and adaptability, Rodriguez confirmed. Humans learn from every encounter. Every fight teaches us something new. We study our enemies, we find their weaknesses, and we exploit them, not because we are cruel, but because we have to. On Earth, species that could not adapt went extinct. General Tov leaned forward. This death world you keep mentioning. Explain it to me. My homeworld has some dangerous animals, but we are the apex species. We have been for millions of years. You say humans were not. Sarah sat back down. No, we were not. For most of our history, we were prey as much as predators. Big cats hunted us. Bears hunted us. Even smaller animals could kill us with venom or disease. We only survived because we were smart enough to work together and stubborn enough to never give up. She pulled up images of Earth's predators. Lions, tigers, crocodiles, sharks, venomous snakes, poisonous spiders. These are some of the creatures that evolved alongside humans. We learned to fear them, to respect them, and eventually to defend ourselves against them. This shaped our psychology. We are cautious because caution keeps us alive. We are aggressive when needed, because sometimes aggression is the only option. We are creative because creativity meant the difference between eating and being eaten. Commander Felsath watched the images with what might have been horror, though it was hard to tell with Aquarian expressions. Your homeworld seems hostile to life. It is hostile to the unprepared, Sarah said. But it creates life that can survive almost anywhere. Human colonies exist on high-gravity worlds that would crush most species. We have settlements in radiation zones that would be lethal to others. We can eat foods that are toxic to half the species in the galaxy. Earth made us tough and clever, Clickstar added. This is what concerns my government. We thought we understood humans. We thought you were a young species, still learning, still weak. Now we wonder what else we do not know. Rodriguez smiled. Probably quite a lot. Humans are good at surprising people. The door to the briefing room opened. Ambassador Talara floated in, her ethereal form pulsing with urgent colors. Forgive the interruption, but there is news. The Krillian High Council has made an announcement. Everyone turned to face her. She activated the main display, which showed the Krillian High Council chamber. 5 elder Krillians sat on a raised platform, their scales marked with the patterns of age and authority. The central figure, High Counselor Grevtok, spoke in the measured tones of official proclamation. The Krillian Empire acknowledges that we have misjudged the human species. We based our policies on appearance rather than capability. This was an error. Effective immediately, all border disputes with human territories will be resolved through diplomatic negotiation. All military posturing will cease. We extend an offer to the human colonial forces. We wish to exchange military liaisons to learn from each other, to ensure that misunderstandings do not lead to conflict. The recording paused. Talara pulsed a satisfied blue. It seems Commander Vexthor has been busy. He spoke before the High Council yesterday. His testimony was quite detailed about the dangers of underestimating humanity. Rodriguez grinned. Well, that is one way to solve a diplomatic crisis. Beat up their champion so badly that they decide peace is the better option. Sarah shook her head slightly. It was never about beating him up, sir. It was about making a point. The point has been made. Over the next few days, similar announcements came from other species. The Mantid Collective requested human advisors for their military academies. The Aquarian Defense Fleet wanted to study human training methods. Even the Ursinians, who had been neutral in most conflicts, expressed interest in establishing closer ties with humanity. Sarah found herself in an unusual position. She had become famous, or perhaps infamous, throughout the galaxy. Everywhere she went on Nexus Prime, beings stared at her. Some with respect, some with curiosity, some with barely concealed fear. She did not particularly like the attention, but she understood its purpose. Sometimes one person's actions could speak for an entire species. Sometimes a single moment could change the course of history. One evening, she was walking through one of the station's observation decks when she encountered Vexithor. He was alone, standing by a large window that looked out at the stars. His arm was no longer in the medical field. He had healed quickly. Commander, Sarah said, stopping a respectful distance away. Vexithor turned. He looked different somehow. Less arrogant, more thoughtful. Lieutenant Chen, I hoped I would see you. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? Sarah was surprised. For defeating you? For teaching me, Vexthor said. I have been a warrior my entire life. I thought I knew what strength meant. You showed me I was wrong. He turned back to the window. I spoke to my High Council. I told them everything. Not just about the fight, but about what I learned. About human adaptability, about Earth, about the dangers of underestimating an enemy. They listened. Some did not want to believe me, but the recording does not lie. You probably saved lives, Sarah said, moving to stand beside him. If our peoples had gone to war, many would have died on both sides. More Krillians than humans, I think, Vexthor said quietly. If every human is trained as you are trained, if every human thinks as you think, then Krillians would have learned a hard lesson. An expensive lesson. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. There is something I do not understand, Vexthor said. Why did you agree to fight me? You could have let another human take the challenge. Someone bigger, more intimidating. Someone who looked like they could match me. Sarah considered the question. Because you specifically targeted me. You called me weak, delicate, a child. If I had let someone else fight, it would have confirmed your belief. It would have said, yes, Sarah is too weak, but here is a real soldier. That is not the message humanity needed to send. So you risked injury? Risked humiliation to make a point? I risked nothing, Sarah said simply. I knew 3 months had passed since the fight that changed everything. Nexus Prime Station looked the same, but the atmosphere was completely different. Where there had been tension and barely concealed hostility, there was now cautious cooperation. Where there had been threats, there was now dialogue. Sarah stood in the newly established Joint Training Center, watching a mixed group of warriors from 4 different species work through combat scenarios. Krillians, humans, Mantids, and Aquarians trained together, learning each other's techniques, sharing their knowledge. It had been her idea, presented to the Diplomatic Council as a way to build trust and mutual understanding. To her surprise, every species had agreed immediately. No one wanted another incident like the one that had nearly sparked a war. In the center of the training floor, a young Krillian warrior named Tekvar was sparring with a human sergeant named Martinez. They moved carefully, respectfully. Tekvar used his strength and reach advantage, but Martinez used speed and leverage. It was not a fight, it was an exchange of knowledge, each one learning from the other. "They are getting better," a familiar voice said behind her. Sarah turned. Vexthor stood there, wearing a new uniform that marked him as a diplomatic liaison. His arm had healed completely, though he occasionally still rubbed the elbow joint as if remembering. "They learned quickly," Sarah agreed. "Both of them." Vexthor moved to stand beside her, watching the training. "I never thought I would see the day when Krillians and humans would train as brothers and sisters. My younger self would have been horrified." "Your younger self learned an important lesson," Sarah said. "Yes, he did." Vexthor's voice carried a mix of embarrassment and pride. "I spoke with the High Council again last week. They want to expand the exchange program. They are talking about joint military operations, shared technology development, coordinated defense against threats that concern both our peoples." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That is a significant change from 3 months ago. 3 months ago, we thought you were weak. Now we know better, and knowing better means knowing that allies are more useful than enemies." He paused. "Also, several council members watched the recording of our fight. Multiple times. One of them asked me how I managed to lose so quickly to someone so small. I did not have a good answer." Sarah smiled slightly. "You should have told them the truth. Size does not matter when you are fighting someone who knows exactly where to strike." "I did tell them that. They did not want to believe it. So I showed them the anatomical analysis you showed me. That convinced them." Vexthor gestured to the training floor. "Now every Krillian warrior in the Empire is being taught about their own vulnerabilities. You have changed our entire military doctrine, Lieutenant Chen." "Good," Sarah said. "Warriors who understand their weaknesses are harder to defeat." On the training floor, Tekvar and Martinez finished their session. They bowed to each other, a human gesture that the Krillians had adopted. Then they moved to the side to make room for the next pair of trainees. Sarah's communicator chimed. She checked it and saw a priority message from Captain Rodriguez. "I need to go. Command briefing." "Of course," Vexthor said. "I will be here when you return. I am scheduled to teach a class on Krillian combat philosophy later today." Sarah walked toward the exit, then stopped and looked back. "Commander, may I ask you something?" "Always, and do you regret it?" "The fight, I mean, the loss. The humiliation." Vexthor thought about it for a long moment. "I regret my arrogance. I regret the insults I spoke. But the loss itself? No, that loss taught me more than all my victories combined. Sometimes we need to be broken down before we can be built back better." Sarah nodded. "That is a wise perspective." "I learned it from a human," Vexthor said. "On a training mat in 10 seconds. The command briefing was held in a secure room deep inside the station. Captain Rodriguez was there, along with several high-ranking officers from both human and allied species. Ambassador Talara floated near the ceiling, observing. Rodriguez gestured for Sarah to take a seat. "Thank you for coming, Lieutenant. We have been monitoring the situation across the sector, and we wanted to update you on some developments." He activated a holographic display showing multiple star systems. Several were marked in red. "These are territories controlled by the Skrath Collective. You have probably heard of them. They are an aggressive species that has been expanding their borders for the past 50 years. They believe in conquest through superior force." Sarah studied the map. "I have read the reports. They are physically powerful, highly militaristic, and they do not negotiate." "Correct," Rodriguez said. "They have been watching the situation here on Nexus Prime. They saw the recordings of your fight with Vexthor. Their intelligence analysts have been studying it." "And?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected where this was going. "And they think it was a fluke," Commander Felsath said, his tentacles moving in patterns that suggested frustration. "They believe Vexthor was simply unprepared, that humans got lucky, that in a real conflict they would crush us easily. They are moving forces toward the border of human space," Rodriguez continued. "Not a full invasion force, but enough to test us. They want to see if humans are really as dangerous as the Krillians now claim." Sarah sat back in her chair. "So they need to learn the same lesson Vexthor learned." "Unfortunately, yes," Rodriguez said. The Scrath are not interested in diplomatic demonstrations. They respect strength and nothing else. If we appear weak, they will attack. If we appear strong, they will think twice. What do you need from me? Sarah asked. Talara pulsed a concerned orange. The Scrath have issued a challenge. They want to send their champion to Nexus Prime for a combat demonstration. They specifically requested that you be the human representative. Sarah was quiet for a moment. They want to prove that my victory over Vexthor was luck. Yes, Rodriguez said. And if you refuse, they will take it as a sign of weakness. But if you accept and lose, the consequences could be severe. The Scrath are not like the Krillians. They do not have honor codes about non-lethal combat. Their champion will try to kill you. Then I will have to make sure he does not succeed, Sarah said calmly. The room fell silent. Several officers exchanged glances. Finally, Rodriguez spoke. Sarah, you do not have to do this. We can find another way to handle the Scrath. We can increase military presence at the borders. We can... Sir, with respect, that is exactly what they want us to do. Sarah interrupted. They want us to escalate militarily so they have an excuse to do the same. This way we solve the problem quickly and with minimal risk. Minimal risk? Felsath's tentacles coiled in a gesture of disbelief. The Scrath champion has killed 17 opponents in ritual combat. 17 different species. He is called the Breaker of Bones. Then I will study Scrath anatomy, Sarah said, just like I studied Krillian anatomy. Every species has weaknesses. Every warrior has vulnerabilities. I just need to find them. Ambassador Talara floated lower. Lieutenant Chen, your confidence is admirable, but the diplomatic corps is concerned. If you die in this challenge, it will be seen as a human defeat. It will embolden the Scrath and possibly trigger the very war we are trying to avoid. And if I win? Sarah asked. Talara pulsed thoughtfully. If you win, the Scrath will likely back down. They are bullies, but they are not fools. They do not fight wars they cannot win. Then I will win, Sarah said simply. Rodriguez looked at her for a long moment. He had known Sarah for 5 years, served with her for 3. He had seen her in combat situations before. He knew that when she said she would win, she meant it. But he also knew that confidence was not always enough. All right, he finally said. You have 1 month to prepare. We will get you every piece of information we can find about Scrath physiology, their combat techniques, their champion's fighting style. You will have the best trainers, the best medical support, everything you need. Thank you, sir, Sarah said. As the briefing ended and people began to leave, Vexthor entered the room. He must have been waiting outside. I heard about the Scrath challenge, he said to Sarah. News travels fast. I want to help you train, Vexthor said. I have fought Scrath before. I know their style. I know their weaknesses. Let me help you, Sarah considered this. You would train a human to fight your former enemies? You are not just a human anymore, Lieutenant, Vexthor said. You are a warrior who taught me humility and wisdom. The Scrath need to learn those lessons too. I would be honored to help you teach them. Sarah smiled. Then I would be honored to accept your help, Commander. 1 month later, the arena on Nexus Prime was packed again. Even more species had come this time. Everyone wanted to see if the human could repeat her victory. Everyone wanted to know if humanity's reputation was deserved, or if it had been built on a single lucky moment. The Scrath champion entered first. He was massive, even larger than Vexthor. His body was covered in thick armor plates that looked almost like stone. His name was Gormak, and he moved with the confidence of someone who had never met a challenge he could not overcome. Then Sarah entered. She looked exactly the same as she had 3 months ago. Small, unassuming calm. The contrast with Gormak was almost comical. The Scrath